and we have a guest speaker from Veyo, Joseph, who will be presenting about transportation in the state of Connecticut with Veyo. Next slide. As a meeting reminders, all lines have been muted upon entry. Please use the chat features as well as the Q&A feature. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to share, and also we will have a time at the end of this webinar to answer any questions based on the presentation that it's going to be provided with the information about Veyo transportation in the state of Connecticut. Next slide. So the agenda for this meeting is to provide a ride overview demo, multi-loading update, contact information, as well as sharing best practices with the Veyo transportation. Also, I'm going to add that this meeting is going to be recorded and we will be posting this webinar on IPRO Learn. Next slide. So with further ado, I'm going to introduce Joseph, who is going to be providing an overview of Veyo Ride View transportation in the state of Connecticut. Good morning, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Agata, for the introduction. Thank you all that have joined us. My name is Joseph. As Agata said, I'm the Strategic Healthcare Services Manager over at Veyo. So I do work as a liaison between facilities, working through y'all's questions, issues, as well as promoting our Ride View booking portal just to make your lives a little easier so you don't have to always be calling into the call center. So a little about Veyo. Veyo, we're committed to bringing safer, smarter transportation to healthcare. All of us really have the same goal, and that is to make sure members are getting to the appointments that they so desperately need to. It's so vital to their health that they're getting to these appointments, and we all have that same goal of getting them there. We were designed for healthcare from the ground up to be a healthcare ally, and that's really that piece of partnership and having the same universal goal of getting our members there. We use data and technology in order to cut costs as well as improve member outcomes. We were built for NEMT, so our full service technology platform was built specifically for the management of a state or a health plan's non-emergency medical transportation benefit program. And lastly, we do have all modes, all regions. Our network includes a number of different providers throughout the state that serve a broad variety of Medicaid members, as well as those living in the most rural regions. So as Agata touched on, some of the key points we will be presenting today include best practices, giving you all a good points of contact to make sure you have a good person you're able to outreach to if you do have issues or questions, make sure we have a strong relationship with you all, as well as bridge any policy gaps or procedure gaps that may exist. So today we'll be covering medical necessity forms, our inclement weather process, holiday schedules process, the grievance filing, and lastly, what exactly goes on? What's the grievance process once a grievance is submitted? So medical necessity forms, this is a really key piece for members' transportation. They are required if a member requires a mode of transportation higher than that of public transit. So meaning they need a medical cab, perhaps a wheelchair car, a bariatric wheelchair car. They're going to need one of these medical necessity forms to ensure that they have an override on their file and can book trips. In regards to these forms, we do recommend that they're submitted via encrypted email rather than fax if possible. And we recommend submitting that to our clinical coordinator email listed there, ctcc@veyo.com. A couple of reasons that I do suggest this is, one, it's very easy to track these requests. If you need something expedited, myself and my team can go in there and find it for the clinical coordinators if you send it for an email. Also, generally, the processing times are quicker in the email queue. And once you do, once the form is approved by our clinical coordinators, you will get an email back saying that it's been approved. So you get that right, that instant communication that you're able to book rides for that member. Processing times here are listed as 10 days, and they can be accessed at the hyperlink in this presentation. I would say that it likely would be less than 10 days if you do follow that recommendation of submitting to the ctcc@veyo.com email. That's also listed on the bottom of the form with the fax number as well. So you don't necessarily have to remember, it's just right at the bottom of the form. I would say it would take a few days likely if you do submit via email. And if you do have an urgent request, you can reach out to us and we'll be able to go in there and get that processed for you. With that being said, we can try to expedite urgent requests, but cannot guarantee a certain approval time. And then one more important link here on this slide is the medical necessity guide. If you follow that lists a lot of common issues or mistakes that our clinical coordinators have seen come back. And we kind of developed a guide off of that to make sure it's as clear as possible to fill out these forms. There's no questions really on your end, and hopefully you don't have to resubmit any. They'll be approved right away because you know exactly how to fill those out. So our inclement weather and holiday schedules. Inclement weather, when there are cases of inclement weather, which we certainly do have, especially in Connecticut, in regards to snow and other weather events, luckily not as crazy this past winter, there certainly may be cancellations that will come up associated with these certain inclement weather events, such as snowstorms. But we do try to prioritize urgent trips. Dialysis is considered to be an urgent trip reason, so we do prioritize making sure these trips are not canceled as much as possible. Unfortunately, if it's a really severe inclement weather event, there may not be transportation providers available on the road, but we do our best to try to triage and prioritize urgent trips. If you do have any shift changes or closures due to an inclement weather event, you can send those to our support email at ctfacility@veyo.com. I'm going to mention that email address a few times throughout this presentation. It's a good asset to you all if you have questions or want to report issues. And also as a resource if you do have like shift changes or closures as stated. You can submit those there and we can complete those for you. In regards to holiday schedules, we do recommend calling our call center or canceling rides directly in our ride view portal. Bigger holidays like Christmas, New Year's, towards the end of the year, we do have scheduled change requests that we'll put out through our mass email notifications. We ask that these changes or cancellations, again, are sent to ctfacility@veyo.com so we're able to process them. So as a part of being a transportation broker, it is really important that we hold our transportation providers accountable to ensure the best possible performance for our members. And in order to do this, we do have meeting requirements across different key performance indicators or KPIs that we hold our transportation providers accountable to. And if they do have issues in any of these areas, we are able to put them on a corrective action plan to improve their service. So down below here, we're going to go through a brief idea of what happens when there are issues with transportation providers, just so you can kind of have an idea of how we do manage them and ensure if they're having issues, we work with them to fix those. So the first time there's an issue, we will issue a verbal warning to that transportation provider. Once it's the second time and beyond, corrective action, which may include a 5% financial penalty out of the next payment cycle, or a reduction in their trip volume that we send to them. If the provider does not address these issues that we did outline in that corrective action plan, then they may be subject to a permanent rate reduction, which is a serious discouraging factor to them. If they're getting to this point, they really need to improve their performance. And in order to manage this, we do conduct regular meetings with our transportation providers regarding these matters, such as key performance indicators, on-time performance, and we share our weekly reports on late trips, just so we can understand exactly what issues that they're having and work with them to fix those concerns with their performance. Lastly on there, it is important, all transportation providers are mandated to go through the CTAA Passenger Assistance Safety and Sensitivity Certification course, PASS, and that's before they're eligible to drive with Veyo. This is just to give you an idea of some of the work that our supply team does. Here's just a list of a few recent providers that they've brought on in the past month or so. That's a regular regular battle with our supply team is working to make sure we have as many providers as possible, especially in areas where we're hearing about difficulties or lack of supply of a certain car, maybe in areas struggling in wheelchair cars or different sort of transportation. Our supply team really tries to work to onboard and use our providers as effectively as possible to make sure we are filling those service gaps and making sure the supply is there for members. So that's just a regular process. They're constantly doing that. And by having as many of these providers as possible, we are able to move trip volume if there are certain providers that are underperforming or have other performance issues. Here are some best practices for channels of communication. In regard to contact center and grievances, you can call us at 855-478-7350. You dial prompt 9, that's the prompt for facilities, and we'll get you through to escalations. As you see below, if you're having challenges with an agent or wish to file a formal grievance, you can also request to speak to escalations. Dialing prompt 9 will do a similar thing, but it'll put you through right through the phone tree. You won't have to ask an agent to put you through to escalations. Grievances can also be submitted in a couple of other locations, one being that support email ctfacility@veyo.com, as well as an online form that's linked to this presentation. In regard to those grievances, I've worked to gather some best practices from our quality assurance team just to address any issues or areas where they might have to seek additional information from you all regarding these grievances. So these are a couple of key points I think are important to keep in mind if you are filing a grievance. So if you are filing a grievance, please enter each submission for each member separately. So don't include more than one member on the same grievance. If there were a few different members that experience transportation difficulties, we do ask that you submit a separate grievance per member in that scenario. Similarly, if you have a member that has a difficulty with transportation on a couple of dates, we ask that you file an instance on each separate grievance. The idea of that is we want to make sure that we are tracking all of those instances that issues occurred, and then we're able to use those in the past slide you saw regarding performance to hold those providers accountable if they are having issues. Lastly, it's best practice to provide a facility callback number and the contact details of the grievance, especially if you want some follow-up from our QA on that grievance. Definitely best practice to list a facility callback number when you are filing that grievance and the contact details. So now I'm going to give you a brief presentation on our RideView portal. Our RideView portal is a real-time portal that allows members' rides to be tracked, to be booked, to be canceled. It just gives additional transparency and hopefully cuts down on the need to reach out to the call center. Hopefully your questions like in regards to ETAs or trip status can be answered in real-time updates in our RideView portal. So our RideView portal is 24/7 access. It's just an online login. Multiple locations can be set up in our portal. So if you work at a few different facilities, you can have a portal set up for each for you. There are different user roles and permissions that we're able to set up. Once you are entering trips in the RideView portal, there's real-time member verification, so there's no worries about member eligibility when you're entering these trips. Real-time information, including driver and vehicle information, contact information, ETAs, those are all available within our RideView portal. And it's just a simplified trip scheduling process. It's going to take away the need for a call that you might have to make and make it a shorter process to be able to book. And you can book blankets as well. So if you have ongoing recurring trips, that's an option. You can book blankets in there as well. So as we said, real-time info, it's a pretty intuitive user dashboard. I think it is pretty easy. Once you're trained to be able to book rides within RideView, you should be able to likely do that faster than calling into the call center. You can likely get a trip booked in a couple of minutes on your own once you know how to use RideView. You can also see trip data from current as well as past trips that have gone to your facility in the portal, and you can book instantly. So now I'm going to give a quick brief demo just so you can see what our portal looks like. Okay. I am just going to share a separate screen momentarily now from the presentation, so change over for you all, and you're going to be able to see you should be able to see my screen now. Does that look all right on your end, Agata? Can you see the RideView portal?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So here is what our RideView portal looks like, just so you have an idea. I've talked about it a lot, but this is what it looks like. As we said, if you do have access to a few different facilities, we can set that up for you so you can track rides to multiple facilities. But this is what the portal will look like. Trips will be listed in list view, so chronologically at the top with the most recent. As it descends down to the bottom, future trips. Each of these have the pertinent trip details kind of listed in this basic view, such as the appointment time, appointment date, member name and Medicaid ID, date of birth, and booking reference. You'll see this square of arrows here. That's indicating that this is a repeating trip, which you are able to set up in RideView. And if you select any of these blue arrows, you will have a drop down and it will provide some more information, more specific information regarding those trips. So here you'll be able to see that this trip for Chris Meyer is repeat. And by the way, this is all fake data. This is our training environment. I didn't say that yet, but no real PHI here. This is all fictionalized. But our fictionalized friend Chris Meyer here has repeating trips, and you can see they repeat Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday until the end of July. You'll also see more specifics regarding each leg of the trip, as we like to call it. So you'll see trip A and trip B. That's just the trip to and the trip from, as well as the specifics regarding each of those, the pickup and drop off, as well as pickup and drop off time for each. The primary contact that's listed in this section of RideView is really the number that you want to be contacted regarding the trip. So that may be the member's number, that may be a unit secretary number, whatever the appropriate number is that you want to get notifications when the driver is there. That's what should be listed as the primary contact on these trips. In our training portal here, you'll see that Chris is listed as a public transit member. But if you do have an ambulatory member or a wheelchair car member, you would get real-time driver info updated in here. First, it would be kind of just more general, such as the company that's been assigned to the trip. But as the trip pickup time does approach, there may be more specific info, such as the driver's info listed in there. There are a couple of other spots where you'll get real-time updates. Right here, the created bubble, and down below the created bubble, those will populate as status updates are available. So right now it just says created because the trip has been created. Once more information is available, if it's been assigned to a provider, it will say confirm with the provider. When a member is going to be picked up, it's going to say driver en route for pickup, trip completed, trip canceled. Any of those pertinent status updates will populate in those bubbles as they arrive. But also there is GPS integration. You'll see on this side map view over here. A lot of our providers, I believe it's now around 90% of our providers are fully GPS integrated with us. And if that's the case, the provider that has the trip, you'll see real-time trip info in terms of a little car tracking along this map, so you'll know exactly where that ride is. Similar to an Uber or a Lyft type of map view, if you've used either of those apps before, you'll get status updates there, which is great. And you also have the ability to cancel this blanket if you want to cancel all trips moving forward, or you can just cancel on the day with either of these legs that you can toggle here. I won't go too into depth because I won't give you all a full tutorial today on the RideView portal. But if you are interested, just reach out to a CT facility at veyo.com. To set you up, we just need to know the address that you require your facility to be set at. RiView is address based, so all trips going to a certain facility will be listed in that facility's view. So we just need your appropriate facility address as well as your user email, your work email, and we can generate an account for you from there. We do ask that you set up a training with us. It'll just be a 45-minute Zoom session. Generally, that would take around 30 minutes with 15 minutes of question and answers built in. And we'll be able to kind of guide you through the full ins and outs of RideView, as well as we'll take you through the trip booking process. There's no downloads or anything required. It's strictly browser based. The only basic requirement that there is that you are using Google Chrome, because it was built to be used within Google Chrome. So now I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to switch back to my presentation. So just hang with me a moment. Now I will give you some of the contact us information here at the end. You're able to file a formal grievance, as we said earlier. You're able to ask any questions regarding policies or procedures or requirements that you may be unaware of. If you do have important operational updates such as closures, trip changes, anything along those lines, we can assist you there as well. And lastly, if you do have interest in pursuing the RiView portal that we presented today, really we just need to know you're interested. From there, we just need that facility address, the email addresses of the staff that you'd like to have access, and we can work with you to set a training time and get you really fully onboarded onto our RiView portal. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope it's been informative for you. I would love to open the room up to questions.
Thank you, Joseph, for the great presentation. And as checking at the chat, looking at the chat, there's no questions that are being posted. We will be opening all the lines, so all lines going to be unmuted. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you have questions, please direct those questions to us, and we will provide you with the best assistance and response as we can. So all lines right now have been unmuted. And feel free to, if you have questions, unmute yourself and post the questions to Joseph as well as to myself. And as I indicated at the beginning of this webinar has been is being recorded. It will be posted on IPRO Learn for everyone's use, as well as the presentation that you will be able also to share with your coworkers at and your staff at the clinic. So I'm not seeing any questions that are coming. I'm assuming this was extremely useful and full information has been provided, and probably that's the reason that there are no questions coming up, as you've been very informative, Joseph. Truly appreciate your ongoing collaboration with the network and troubleshooting a lot of situations with transportation that is happening in the community, whether that is around the holiday time or during inclement weather.
Absolutely. And thanks so much, Agata, for having me. And if you all don't have any questions now, but you do think of some, please, again, I mentioned it a few times throughout the presentation, but don't hesitate to reach out to our support email, ctfacility@veyo.com. More than happy to facilitate any questions or help you with any needs that you might have in regards to transportation. We have a team that's more than happy to help. So please do feel free to reach out, and thank you all so much that have joined us today.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.